what's the audio like? Are we? You can hear it all. Testing,
absolutely.
1, 2.
Yeah, there's not enough
Fab.
ambient noise to be a hindrance. Not enough Fleetwood Mac to hinder our progress here.
Oh, the Mac.
The Mac. It is Car Con Carne, sponsored by the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston. The brand new, all-new 2019 Mazda 3 sedan and hatchback have arrived, and they're now in stock. Autobarn Mazda of Evanston, 1015 Chicago Avenue, named Dealer of the Year by DealerRater.com for 2019. I'm James Van Osdell, sitting across from poet, musician, raconteur, a vision on the silver screen, songwriter, hero, muse, Robyn Hitchcock.
It's Car Con Carne. Let's eat in the car. It's Car Con Carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Osdell.
Hey, James, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Well, I saw your show last night. We're recording this first week of April. I saw you at Space. One thing I love that you do, you've got 4+ decades of music to choose from. You don't play the same set list every night.
No.
I think that's a courtesy to the fans, and probably a courtesy to yourself,
too. Courtesy to me. I mean, once you have the same set list, which I suppose you do if you're Fleetwood Mac, or, for instance, if you're Bruce Springsteen on Broadway, it's essentially like a play. It's set. There's nothing you can do. You can maybe change the introduction slightly, or you can play a few different mistakes on a guitar or whatever, but it's set. Mm-hmm. It's the same as going and, in a way, like, going and doing Macbeth or King Lear or The Cocktail Party or whatever. It's a play. That's it. The drama. And I really don't like that kind of thing. Like, I don't like memorizing introductions and doing them twice. I mean, like, if you write a book or you paint a picture, you write that book once, and that's it. There it is, Brighton Rock, whatever. There might be a new edition of it or something. You might, some other distinguished person might write a foreword. If you paint a picture, that's it. You'll die, and then in 300 years' time, if you're lucky and the painting's still around, some people will retouch it and say, oh, look, there's a barge that didn't used to be here, let's bring it back. Like someone editing in a section of Sweet Jane that was taken out, But those things kind of happen once. You paint a picture, that's it. You write a book or a play, that's it. But songs, either this is a privilege or not, the songs are with you for life. So I'm still singing songs that I wrote 40 years ago in some cases. And that's a plus in a way, because it means I've bottled little bits of time. I've bottled bits of my life, like a firefly in a jar that doesn't suffocate. Or like a GIF, if you want to look at things in Instagram terms, a little recurring motif that goes round and round, little trapped souls, trapped moments. But time still's moving on, and one of the big functions of time is as a liberator as much as a destroyer. Time frees you up to make things slightly different each time. So if I'm doing the show and I'm exhuming nightly these little nuggets of existence, these fireflies from my past, the least I can do is put them in a different order or select a different one. I know I've played this area. I played in Chicago in January, and I played outside Chicago in January, and I played in Chicago in November. So I've played here a lot. So I figure if I'm last night, I'm not going to go in and do the most obvious selection of Robyn Hitchcock songs, because they've probably all heard them in the last 6 months. That was I would think last night's was a fairly deeply saturated listening crowd. I don't think there were that many casual listeners. They would know the arcane stuff, and they'd also be up for something new. So that's a very, very long answer to what was a short question.
One of the things, you're talking about history and time in Chicago, you dredged up memories of lounge acts and Metro.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a connectedness between you and this city.
Oh, yeah, enormously.
A warmness.
Chicago was the first place I played in the States outside of New York. So this goes back to 1985, and I think I played the Metro in the summer, and maybe I played the Vic in the winter with the Egyptians. Yeah.
So this was Fegmania?
This was Fegmania and Gotta Let This Hen Out. So a long time ago, yeah.
Which was, I think, when I first discovered you. And I remember, here's something interesting. I mean, I think Robyn Hitchcock means so many different things to so many different people. For me, my first connection with Robyn Hitchcock, I think that's when I started to understand what was then referred to as alternative music. A friend just sat me down and said, "You've got to listen to this guy. He's like John Lennon for the rest of us."
I'd like to hear the Paul McCartney for the rest of us. Should have met up with him. I mean, it's definitely a passé term. It's an obsolete term, but it was always a rather amorphous genre. I mean, could you sit on the porch and play some alternative? You can play some blues, you can play some country, you can play some bluegrass. Aficionados of all these will if they're the talking kind, could go deep into a dissection of what is blues and what is not blues. But to the outside ears, you can pretty much say it's a 12-bar, it's a blues, or this sounds twangy to me, it's country, or wow, here come the banjos, it's bluegrass. This is a Haydn string quartet. I think this is probably a string quartet. Oh no, it's not. I mean, but alternative. What could you say? There was no definition of an alternative sound. There were acts that were part of it. There were acts that came out of it very large, like REM, and people like The Cure and stuff.
REM, very early and very vocal fans of Robyn Hitchcock.
They were very supportive. They were very helpful, and they soared a long way above the alternative marsh, if you like. And then there were people like the Replacements and the Violent Femmes, and people like Jonathan Richman and myself, who just happened to come along at the time and are now probably just known as characters. You define Jonathan Richman as, well, Jonathan Richman's like Jonathan Richman, and you'd probably say the same about me, But then we were always solo acts as opposed to REM or the Replacements or that. But it's that time, 10,000 Maniacs, and then people who were actually pop stars like the Psychedelic Furs and the Pretenders, and the B-52s also were put into that genre. Yeah. And now, what do we all have in common? We all sound quaint. Some of us probably get bigger royalty checks than others, and probably some of us have got larger alimonies to pay off than others, or medical bills,
Speaking of Psychedelic Furs, did you talk to Richard Butler about The Ghost in You? Do you know what his response was to that? Because I think it's one of your more gorgeous covers.
I've never talked to him about it. I played it quite often live, and I opened for the Psychedelic Furs at Thalia Hall a couple of years ago, and then I did my own show there last November. I enjoy the Furs because their fireflies are very carefully bottled. They are frozen moments in time which come alive. They sound and kind of look exactly like they did nearly 40 years ago. They're the Paul McCartney school of, this is what you loved, this is how it sounded, here it is, and hey, I look much the same, whereas Bob Dylan is, you can see the passage of time, you can just see the years between when he first wrote Like a Rolling Stone and what it is now. And like many people, I prefer the original, but I suppose you can say whatever you think of it. You just say, well, the paint never dried on Bob Dylan's compositions. In a way, he kind of gainsays what I said to begin with. You kind of write something once and it's there. In a way, his songs are endlessly fluid. They obviously appear not to be finished from the way he sings them. Yeah.
You talked last night about the carcass of the music industry.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen everything at this point. I mean, you've had the major label ride. You've been independent. What is it like to be you, Robyn Hitchcock, as a touring recording artist in 2019, with all you've encountered and seen along the way, all the detritus left in the wake of the industry?
Well, I think it's much the same, really. I mean, I was independent. That's to say, I couldn't get signed for about 10 years before I got signed by A&M in America, who actually saw me as a potentially profitable investment. And in those days, record labels would sign you and put out, 3 or 4 records before thinking, well, maybe you aren't profitable. Then I was on Warner's, who had me for like 2.5 records and realized I wasn't. So I was done with major labels by 2000. But my whole gestation period, arguably the songs, the era, the stuff I'm best known or loved for, the Soft Boys and Often Dream of Trains, Fegmania, Element, the records people really feel extremely nostalgic about because it takes them all back somewhere. I mean, you must have been 16 when you first heard me or something.
I was, I think, 17, yeah. And then I went back to Black Snake Diamond Roll and then Soft Boys, like I played Catch Up, and then...
Right. I mean, I remember meeting some kids at a bus stop when I first played here, or second played here in 1985, and they came up and said, "Oh, we saw you last night, you're Robyn Hitchcock." And I was only 32, but, it's our man Brian. That's Brian Ferry.
I couldn't hear it through my headphones. I've got plenty of Roxy Music questions.
But that's a good omen. But I
remember these guys. This is more than this.
Yeah, I remember these guys coming up to me and saying they'd been to the show, and I said, "Whoa, you look young. How old are you, young man?" And the guy said, "I'm 16," and I said, "Blimey, I'm twice your age."
Talking about the A&M catalog, and for a lot of people, that was an entry point. Globe of Frogs, all the respect, that whole era, but it's not available digitally.
It's not available at all because it's only available through Universal. A&M was an independent label when I signed to them in 1987. 2-3 years later, they were absorbed by Polygram. A few years after that, Polygram was absorbed by some whiskey manufacturing company or something, and then the whole thing was swallowed by Universal. So my A&M masters all belong to Universal Music, and it is to them that those questions should be directed. It's
frustrating.
I have no control over them. All I can say is that those records are widely available, and the chances are, if you're even asking about them, you have them on some format. I'm not going to make any money on it or lose any. If you want to rip it from somewhere, rip it. Rip your old copy. If those records did come out now, I wouldn't make any money off them, so I'm not really that bothered. The independent stuff, the stuff that I own, up to Element of Light, and then my album I from 1990. Those are things that I and the people I was involved with get royalties for, so I'm happy to direct you to those. Or the listener.
Speaking of that, it was lovely to hear Queen Elvis last night as a show.
Oh, that's always fun to do with Emma, yeah.
Are you always reading? I get the sense that someone with your academic background and just the way you communicate, I feel like you've probably always got your face in a book.
Not enough. I spend too much time on social media, although I've disconnected from Twitter now. But I read books, but I don't necessarily read challenging, provocative books. They might just be crime novels or Julian Barnes or something. What I do find is it's quite hard to read the classics. I know I'm never going to read Moby Dick or War and Peace. I can't even take Joseph Conrad. Dickens is hard work simply because the language has changed. I mean, you need a guide to read Shakespeare. It's there, it's in English, but you really need to go to a class. You can't just sort of flick open Titus Andronicus and go, "Oh, hey-ho, I see what's going on here." Even the plays that I studied, I would have to probably study again. A good production of Shakespeare, and you can kind of get what's going on. Emma and I went to, I think it was As You Like It or something in London, and they had a bar, and I've never drunk to Shakespeare before. Oddly enough, I really enjoyed it. By the third glass of Lady Petrol, I was just deep into it. That I don't know what it was. The words sort of swam into focus. Maybe I was relaxed enough. Maybe you need to be drinking to take those plays in, and then suddenly the language is just sort of swarms at you, just squirms at you off the stage. What a beautiful way to put things. So I would say, if you're still I'm allowed to drink, maybe just take a bottle of wine and go and see a play, Shakespeare play. But
right.
I wish I was more literate. But I don't have the patience. I'm a very 20th century person. I can't, like my favourite poet's T.S. Eliot, I can't understand Keats or Shelley or Byron. I just don't have the patience for it, or the metaphysicals. But once you get to Eliot, who used a modern jargon, I can follow him perfectly. And he, like Dylan, is a magpie, a jackdaw. He takes all these little quotes from places and then builds his own equally beautiful world. But you find everything comes from somewhere. I wish my stuff was learned enough that I could do like Notes on the Wasteland, like Dylan did. If I had a record, I could have, hey, this is derived from hearing that. This is a piece of, this is adapted from a line in a song. This is taken from a poem.
Yeah. And we're at the halfway point. My conversation with Robyn Hitchcock at the Virgin Hotel in downtown Chicago. This is Car Con Carne, presented by the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston, 1015 Chicago Avenue, right over there between Main and Dempster. Can I run through some of your songs that have made connections with me and get some quick thoughts on them?
Far away.
Let's start with Madonna of the Wasps.
Oh, yeah.
You played a very delicate acoustic version of last night. I have always thought this song, the recorded, the studio version, is the perfect pop song. It's not a typical pop song, but I love the way it goes storming in, and you kind of rein it in with your voice. Like the second the music crescendos, you kind of put your arms around it, and it really has an interesting way of collecting momentum, moving forward. It's just a really well-constructed song.
Thank you. It was, the recorded version fades in because there was a whole early section which we ditched, and I don't play any of it live now, but we used to do a little bit of it live. And the end of the first section wound up with, "Is this love?" And then you've got the second section, which is what people know as the song now. And then there's the instrumental, which I think just repeats and fades out. It might even be an edit. So I know that recording fades in and out. I like whatever it was that Andy Metcalf did as a sort of keyboard overdub. I kind of felt it cluttered it up in a way, but I also there was some quite subtle little notation thing he did in the background. He was very good at that sort of thing. So it tended to thicken the music a bit, which I'm not sure was a good idea, but the actual notes I thought were great. But yeah. Long gone, that version. I probably played at half that speed now.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a more modern song. I think this is one of the modern Hitchcock era. I think this is one of your masterpieces, Goodnight Oslo. I think it's a beautiful, slow burner, kind of epic.
Thank you. Goodnight Oslo. Yeah, not many people have picked up on that. It was based on a... Have you been to Scandinavia?
I've not.
Because it's nearer the poles, it's further north, so they have very long twilights. And in midsummer, you can, down the south, it doesn't get completely dark, but you have a kind of arc of about, 4 hours when it's getting dark, and then it's sort of dusky, and then it sort of gets light again, but it's all quite slow. The closer you are to the equator, the quicker the snap between light and dark is, But there you can sometimes have these sort of, feels like a 6 or 7 hour twilight, and there were a couple of all-night parties that I was at. It's a delicate way of describing them, polite way of, and the kind of insomnia that followed that, and the psychosis centered around the Vigeland, the Frogner Park in the middle of Oslo, which is a this artist Vigeland in the 40s. I mean, right around the time the Germans invaded, but I think he might have done it just before they got there. But he sculpted all these grey stone characters, human characters, slightly larger than life, but they almost looked like actual people. They were very naturalistic, a bit like the H.P. Lovecraft story where the wax museum is actually real people covered in wax, as if there were real, dead people in there. It's as if Vigeland has trapped all these grey, writhing souls. There'll be an old man. There's a famous one of a young kid, sort of like a 1-year-old, just kind of howling, wah, like that. There's couples draped around each other quite erotically. The statue, they're kind of erotic without pushing it, but there's something very sensual about these bodies. And right in the middle of this park, the park has these grey characters, trapped grey souls dotted around it in the Scandinavian twilight. Right in the centre is the monolith, which is a tower, a sort of almost like as if a cigar tube has been filled with little grey people and tapped out, and there they are. It's about I don't know, maybe 150 feet high, and it's made entirely of writhing grey people. And I first saw this at the end of one of these all-night parties, and I was in an extremely dislocated state. And many years later, I wrote Goodnight Oslo, and one of the characters in it, Arald Skrindo, was still alive, and he heard the song, and he just vanished. Boy, yeah, that's a mood piece. So I'm glad you like it.
I love it.
Obviously, caught the feeling of what I was writing about, And Tromsø, right up the top, is in the middle of summer. There's no darkness at all. So if you're in Tromsø, it's there's 2 months of no dark, having your eyelids sewn open. And then in midwinter, there's 2 months of no light. It would completely do my head in. I couldn't stand it. I like South Norway with I'm a twilight soul. I like that. So right down the bottom, Kristiansand is much more gentle. But even the north of Britain, I mean, I was in Edinburgh at midnight a couple of years ago, and I realised it wasn't dark, Scotland is only a couple of 100 miles off the Norwegian coast. So, and Scotland, I dare say, always feel like if Brexit fully went through, Scotland might leave Britain and sort of, join the Scandinavian, the old Hanseatic League or something.
For a man who's known for his surrealistic take on stuff, Glass Hotel seems like the most straightforward. It's a storefront Hitchcock favorite.
It's a good version on that film Jonathan Demme did. Glass Hotel, I think it's pretty visual. I mean, I think my songs are visual more than necessarily surrealistic. But surrealism is a term applied to paintings, so yeah. The Glass Hotel, it's just a hotel made of glass. I think there's a hotel made of ice somewhere in Sweden. And the events occur inside the Glass Hotel, and the flower coming out of the phone, and the radio in the corridor, and the person standing next to somebody who isn't there. They're all things you can see in the Glass Hotel. And then the fact that there is only ever one moment, despite the fact that we are history must have got us here, and destiny will remove us. They both end in Y. But meanwhile, you're just here.
Let's jump much more current. Time Coast on the most recent album is one of my favorites.
Oh, thanks.
It sounds like a just very jangly 60s psychedelia flavored song. I mean, it's great hook.
Thanks. I mean, that's what my whole career, when I have basically sort of 2.5 settings. One of them is Revolver by the Beatles, and I suppose the other one is probably just acoustic. And I make quite quiet records. I often dream of trains. The Man Upstairs are all drum-free, acoustic guitar driven, and then I'll do my sort of jangle pop ones from the Soft Boys, Underwater, Moonlight, up to the Robyn Hitchcock record, which was very much that template with Brendan Benson saying, "Could you make a record like that, like he imagined the Soft Boys were?" So we did that, and
you and
Time
Brendan
Coast
Benson,
has that. Yeah,
you and Brendan Benson are both raconteurs. I mean, he is.
He's natural raconteur. He's
Yes.
in the Raconteurs with Jack White. Yeah, they're making a new record now.
Excellent.
So Time Coast has got that element, and it's set, and it's another kind of aiming at Revolver and missing, which is really that's my technique, my shtick has been to aim at Revolver and miss, because it means you're aiming high. So, even though you're not going to actually write Revolver, for a variety of reasons, you're going to get your dart in a good part of the board, if that's what you want to do. And I've made no bones about that since I first appeared with the Soft Boys in 1977-8. That's what I was trying to do. It's a genre of music, like taking it back to the beginning of this conversation, like blues or like country or like bluegrass or like reggae or ska. I'm not quite sure what this genre is. People call it psychedelic, or they call it classic pop, or they, spangle rock, or whatever it is. But it's a lot of what I do is in that genre, and it's with that lyrical outlook. If you like the Beatles from 1966 to 1968, and you like Bob Dylan from 1965 to 1968, again, you will probably, what I do will make sense. You may not like it, but you'll understand where it's coming from. And that's the genre I work in. It's a long, obsolete genre. It's like somebody deciding to play bebop, now. Yeah, man, I've got this new kind of jazz called bebop. Ha! They're going to dig it. The kids are going to love this.
All right, so one more song I want to float by you. Speaking of the Beatles, let's talk about Beatle Dennis. Let's talk about Flesh Number 1.
Oh.
Which, this to me, Robyn, this is one of the more beautiful sounding songs you've ever written.
Well, thank you. It was actually quite a throwaway, really. It was, what made it was Peter Buck. It was the first time I'd ever played with him, and I was making some demos in North London, and REM were making one of their many trips to Britain. I think they were recording with Joe Boyd, and I met Peter on their previous trip. So this was like March 1985. Yes, sir. March 1985, just before I got to Chicago, for my first glimpse of the Metro. When was the Union Carbide building put up?
Oh my God, I couldn't even tell you.
Looks kind of 80s to me. I can't.
Could be.
Well, I don't know if it was there or not. Maybe they were building it. But so Peter Buck came round to my friend Chris's house, and he had about half an hour. I think he'd been up all night. He was quite perky. And I played 2 songs he'd never heard before. And as is his wont, he sat there with I think he borrowed a 12-string of mine, and we played a song called Bird's Head, which I think came out eventually in one of those retrospective ones, and we did a demo for Beetle Dennis, and he just did this brilliant thing that he does sometimes where he will find a pattern to play over the song. He's good because he's not a noodler, he's not a licks man. Peter listens to stuff and he'll either kind of replicate what you're doing and reinforce it, or he'll come up with a little hook line. I mean, probably one of the most famous ones with REM would be Shiny Happy People.
Mm-hmm. Or South Central Rain. I mean, it's so distinct.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, probably. I know Shiny Happy People is I know that's Mike Mills's chords, and then Peter put that over the top, the hook, and he would have done that little mandolin hook and the huge hit, Losing My Religion. And Beetle Dennis, he just came in and went ba da 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 ba da 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 ba da 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 da. And I'm basically just playing the More Than This chords,
Going back to Roxy Music.
More than this. And I'm singing, different lyric, different melody, different vibe, and then the song goes off, the chords meander. But what Peter did was he really made that. I should probably have given him a co-composition or something on that. But he, he really, I thought, made that song, and I don't play that unless I've got somebody to play that. There's nothing, the song is incomplete. That's why I never play it. If I have somebody else playing that melody line. But I think that's the thing that the most striking example of what Peter can add to a song, certainly one of mine,
It's fantastic. All right, Robyn Hitchcock, you are a delight. You're a musical hero.
Oh, well, it's very sweet of you, James. I'm glad we were able to do it.
Me too. And I'm so glad I saw you again last night. And we love you here.
Well, I love being here. I love playing in Chicago. It's always been good. It's since way back in 1985. It's always been great to play here. This is up there with New York and San Francisco as, oh my God, this is one of the gigs. It's a special. Yeah. It's the Chicago night.
Right.
So I don't think I've got any more shows booked here this year, but I would aim to come back and do some more next year, and I'll let you know. But
that's all we can ask.
I totally love it.
And as we're sitting here in the Virgin Hotel, we're on the second floor of the Virgin Hotel.
Yes.
And we're overlooking the L train. This is not a train you would dream about. You would not often dream of the L train in Chicago.
I could easily dream of it, because the L train here on Lake and Wabash, actually, it comes towards you and then it curves round and goes away again. I've never been anywhere where you've had a view of a train constantly turning a corner. It's coming at you and then it goes away again. It's quite a tease. And I think it also sets off the street corner rather beautifully.
It does. See, I have insider's knowledge. I know that inside it probably smells like pee, and that taints my view of the aesthetics, my overall visual sense.
Well, to worry about one's appearance is bourgeois, but it's always best to smell good.
Excellent. Robyn Hitchcock, thank you.
Thanks for having me, James.